Why is it that people can't think clearly about investing or decisions in their lives?
Well, they don't think very well about sex or gambling either. No, the standard human condition is a lot of miscognition.
And there are ways to make hay of that, or?
Yes, you can take advantage of other people. You can improve your own life by eliminating your miscognitions.
It's my understanding, Charlie, that you were instrumental in helping Warren get away from focusing on the cigar butt form of investing and looked more towards companies that, I guess you could call them branded companies.
Better businesses.
Better businesses, right?
Yes.
How did you help him make that decision?
Well, it was perfectly obvious, and he'd made so much money in the other technique that it was hard for him to leave something that had worked so well. But it was not going to scale. So when he started looking for investment values in great businesses that were temporarily under pressure, it changed everything for the better. Now we could scale up to the big time.
Someone told me they asked Warren if he could buy one brand. This was about 40 years ago, what that company, what that brand would be. And he said Gillette, which makes sense. What would that company be today?
Coca-Cola.
Still?
If you take the amount of Coca-Cola drunk in the world and the main flavor, it's one hell of a brand. Now, it's such a different product from this stuff on the internet. I don't have the same. My judgment would not be as good on the internet as it is on Coca-Cola.
Getting back to Coca-Cola, you mentioned that it would be a bad idea if it got into cannabis. I mean, why not? Doesn't it make sense?
Because it's such a wholesome brand and associated with happiness. Why do we want to associate it with a recreational drug?
Well, they have to grow.
I think that would be a terrible idea.
You also mentioned at the meeting yesterday doing billion-dollar deals overnight with very short contracts.
Yeah, we've always done that.
Has that ever blown up on you?
I can't think of a single example in my whole life where keeping it simple has worked against us. We've made mistakes, but they weren't because we kept it simple.
And that's simple.
I would say that the chief advantage that Berkshire has had in accumulating a good record is that we have avoided the pompous bureaucratic systems. We've tried to give power to very talented people and let them make very quick decisions.
I want to ask you about something that's talked about all the time with you guys, which is succession. And you talk about that all the time, and this has been countless barrels of ink spilled. But if you're getting older, how do you make the decision to step back if you may not have the mental acuity to make that decision?
Well, I think you'll be surprised at how well both Warren and I are capable of stepping back when we feel our powers are too far deteriorated.
Have you talked about that?
Sure. And Warren has told people to speak up when the time comes. Right. If we've been rational all this way, do you think we're not going to try and be rational right to the bitter end?
Is the process, I mean, we're sort of in the middle of the process. You've been giving more and more control or authority to Ajit and Greg and Todd and Ted. So it's sort of a continuum, a process like that?
Of course. And by the way, it's working fine. It's amazing how good this next generation is. And they're steeped in our non-bureaucratic ways. There's these big bureaucracies. They think the work is done if you get it out of your inbox and into somebody else's inbox. That is not getting it done. Getting it done is when it's done, not when it's in somebody else's inbox. And if everybody's in a big committee meeting all the time, you're worn out at the end of the day and you haven't done anything.
Where do you think, Charlie, the biggest opportunities are globally right now?
Well, I don't think we have a master plan of knowing where the opportunities are. We're trying to find intelligent things to do with a torrent of surplus cash. And we've always had a torrent of surplus cash. And we're always looking for intelligent things to do with it. And if we find things that are intelligent to do, we do it. And if we don't find anything, we let the cash build up. What the hell is wrong with that?
Not much.
Yeah, not much is right.
I want to ask you a little bit about some Silicon Valley stuff. I mean, you said yesterday you were ashamed of missing on Google.
Yeah, I am. We could see, if we looked carefully at our own companies, that their advertising was working way better than other advertising. Just we weren't paying enough attention.
So is it too late?
I don't know. I don't know everything, you know.
Well, we'll leave that aside. But, you know, you look at these tech investments. So there's Apple, now Amazon. Did you know about the Amazon purchase? Were you involved in that decision?
No, of course not. I've never owned a share of Amazon. I am a huge admirer of Bezos. I think he's been sort of like Lee Kuan Yew. He's a leader that's all by himself. He's been just a perfectly amazing human leader. But it's always been too complicated and uncertain for my particular temperament.
It's interesting.
And I find other things to do that'll work fine.
Someone was telling me the other day that they thought that you could actually sort of think of Apple and Amazon not as technology companies so much, but as big branded growth businesses, which would be something that would be appealing to you.
Oh, I think they're both
right
brands and technologies, and it's hard to separate the effect of one from the other.
And as far as what's going on in Silicon Valley right now with IPOs, unicorns going public and not having any profitability or any prospect of profitability in the near term, what do you think of that situation?
Well, there are a whole lot of things I don't think about. And one of them is companies that are losing $2 or $3 billion a year and going public. It's not my scene.
Have you looked, so you're not interested in Uber or companies like that necessarily?
Well, I have to be interested when they're that important and sweep the world and change practice. But I don't have to invest in everything I'm interested in. I'm looking for things where I think I can predict what's going to happen with a high degree of accuracy. And I have no feeling that I have the ability to do that with Uber.
So I want to ask you just a question or two about growing up. And you were at the University of Michigan and you dropped out and joined the Army, right?
I certainly did.
And
we all did in those days.
Yeah, so how did the Army influence you?
Well, everything influences you in your past life. And yes, of course it influenced me. I never wanted to be in a big bureaucracy. I was well toward the bottom. I finally got to be a second lieutenant in the Army. I was way down in the ranks. And nobody gave a damn what I thought about any subject. They just gave me a little job to do, and I was supposed to do it. And of course, I didn't like that as well as having a freer reign to control my own destiny and so on. So I am much better adapted to being a capitalist operator than I am to being a cog in a bureaucracy.
Did you ever get in trouble in the Army?
Of course.
Tell us about that.
Well, my senior officers could tell I thought they were wrong. And I tried to hide it, and they could still tell. and so, of course, I never got in any serious trouble, but they who in the hell likes a junior officer? You look over there, and he's plainly indicating he thinks you're an idiot.
So that didn't work out too well.
Well, it worked out all right. I did my work well enough so it didn't bother me. But it was not a milieu where I was going to succeed.
Right. So how did you figure out? A lot of people look at your life and would want to emulate what you've done. is that something that people can do? Look at someone like yourself and see your path. I mean, you're in real estate law, then investing. What do you even consider yourself? A businessman? How would you describe what you do?
Well, I don't consider myself I think my way of thinking will work for anybody, of trying to be very rational and disciplined. So I think that much. But to flit around to various careers and go into the other fellow's professional territory and try and outdo him and do all kinds of things like that, I think will not work for most people. And so I always I'm always being visited by young men who say, I'm practicing law and I don't like it. I'd rather be a billionaire. How can I do it? And I tell them, well, I'll tell you a story. A young man goes to see Mozart. And he says, Mozart, I want to start composing symphonies. And Mozart said, how old are you? And the guy says, 22. And he says, you're too young to do symphonies. And the guy says, yes, but you were 10 years old when you were composing symphonies. And Mozart says, yes, but I wasn't running around asking other people how to do it.
Right.
So I think this flitting around business is something not everybody should try.
Yeah, I think
if I tried it again, it might not have worked as well.
You said just figure out how
I may
to
have
do
been
something
quite
and do
lucky.
it. Why were you were lucky?
Yeah, I think I had some luck, yes.
Well, but I think there's more to it than that. I mean, where were you looking?
Yes, the combination of luck and skill. That's what all good records are.
Right. So let me just ask you a few more questions. And do you eat all that peanut brittle up there, right?
Yeah.
Is that your one peanut brittle day, or do you eat peanut brittle? Really?
Yeah, it is.
So the other 364 days, you don't eat much of it.
They put it there. I think Warren is so businesslike. He likes promoting peanut brittle at the annual meeting.
Well, don't the other Berkshire brands get jealous and say, why don't you put like a railroad train up there or something like that?
We got a whole exhibit hall full of other brands promoting one another at the Berkshire meeting. You cannot claim that we're under promoting.
I would never claim that. But you know, the Coke people and the Seas people get special placement up there.
Yes, they do. But those are two Seas was our first great brand, and Coke is one of the great. Well, it's a great soft drink brand of the world. So they're entitled to have a special place.
Do other companies ask to get put up there, though?
Well, they all push themselves forward as much as we'll let them.
Is that a yes?
Yes, of course they want to be pushed up.
Okay. So any thoughts on how the meeting is going to be different next year? I mean, when do you start talking about that, or do you even talk about the annual meeting?
We never talk about it. We just do what works as long as it works, and when it stops working or it indicates it's going to stop working, we'll stop.
Did Apple say they want to have some exhibit in the convention center this year?
I had no discussion with them. I don't have any idea what they're doing.
And do you see a time when Ajit and Greg and Ted and Todd will come up there with you at some point?
I don't know how it will morph. I don't think that what worked in one era has to be duplicated in another. I don't think what we're doing would work for many people. I think it was an historical accident. We didn't do it on purpose. We just sort of drifted into it. When it worked, we fanned the flames. But we didn't create it with any forethought. And I think some later generation will have some different system. I think there's more wiseassery in our meeting than would be appropriate forever. And I'm the principal wise-ass.
Yeah, you are. Charlie Munger, Vice Chairman of Berkshire Hathaway.
Wise-ass.
Wise-ass.
Right.
Thanks very much for joining us. I'm Andy Serwer. You've been watching Influencers. We'll see you next time.